Welcome to Connecting Things. Good morning. This is going to be a really fun morning. We haven't really had a guest like this. We've had a lot of designers. We're about like 99% graphic designers who work in Irvine. And then the rest, we've had some music producers. We've had a chef, but we haven't had somebody who does what Eli does. So I'm really excited to have a conversation with him. We're just going to talk about what he does and how he does it. So we're really excited to have you. Why don't you give us just like a quick rundown of who Eli is and what he does?
28. Is this the kind of event?
Everyone's looking for your age.
Yeah, this is 28. Just in case you were wondering, I look like 40 now. I went to UC Irvine. I worked at Column 5 for a couple years. Awesome time. And I'm one of the co-founders of Foodbeast, which is a food news media website.
That's what I was trying to like. I was like, if you call it a blog, it doesn't give it enough credit. If you call it an editorial, it makes it sound like the New York Times. But you also do all this other content creation stuff around food. Tell us about what maybe the subject matter of what Foodbeast is in particular, maybe the tone too.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, and it started back in 2008, my sophomore year in college, and it was a blog. It was just, I liked Hypebeast, and that's where I got the name. And Hypebeast is cool because what they did for fashion at the time, to get your fashion news and trends, you would have to go to Vogue, you would go to Bazaar, and all these things where like I can't relate to any of that. So I would read Hypebeast, where they, instead of talking down at people, they created a community, and they just started talking about streetwear. They talked about streetwear before they grew their blog into a full-fledged publication that covers everything. But because the dudes were talking about streetwear first, they talked about it very comfortably, because you can't talk about streetwear like the same way you would talk about a runway model. And so we took that same approach at Foodbeast, where there's Food Network, and there's like Food and Wine and all that good stuff.
Which basically talks to parents, moms at home with two kids. Well, it's actually interesting because Foodbeast has a tone and a sort of a narrative that is representative of culture, but my wife and I, we like to watch the Food Network. It really talks to like a much different demographic. Like Foodbeast, the content, the subject matter would be really, for lack of a better word, food porn. Burgers with mac and cheese on it, or
hell yeah. I mean. Because we started talking about the first like 10 blog posts were about what was new at Carl's Jr. and Subway, and so there's no highbrow way to talk about that. It's like how you talk to your friends. So it's like, here's what's brand new at Carl's Jr. And why I was stoked on it was that I couldn't hear what was new about like Carl's Jr. from any other website. And so what really started defining the blog's tone was the 11th story, where at UC Irvine, I had a buddy who just loved to eat every fucking thing he could. And so he walked into our dorm room, and he grabbed everyone in there, and he was like, I'm going to go to the mess hall, and I'm going to eat Sloppy Joe's because it's all you can eat. And you're going to document it. And I was like, all right, bro, relax. And then so we go, and he orders up 20 Sloppy Joes, and he just puts them on the table. And now there's a crowd, and like the administrator in the mess hall is like watching us. And he goes to about like 14. And then on the 14 and a half, this dude gets up and like starts wobbling. And I'm like, oh, this is fucking bad, dude. Like, cause I'm now associated with this, and like I'm gonna get kicked out. My mom's gonna kill me. And he like catches his hurl, and then runs to the bathroom, and we chase after him, and he's spray barfed all across the wall, and it's fucked. Like, we left so fast, and so I had been taking pictures the whole time, and this is like one of those moments, like I was like, oh shit, dude, like, is this like not journalistic integrity, because whatever, I'm not a journalism major by any means, so put that out there. I did not have that background. I just wanted to like, do I want to put Chris Doe in that? That's my friend. Do I want to put him in that light? Is this the stuff that Foodbeast wants to cover? and I published it. And that's the shit that we want to cover. So like we want to cover everything in food, everything adjacent to food. And so that just what we were covering in the beginning defined what our style guide was. And to this day, we don't have a style guide. We don't have a business plan. And it's just what we wanted to cover and just kept getting into new things.
Okay, well then logistically, so you went from a blog that covers barf and things the like, sloppy food, and then you kind of were, it sounds like you were a little bit of an incubator phase where you were working here or other places, and you still kind of had this thing on the side. How did it go from just something that you wrote about, weird novelty food, gross food, and then you just had enough that you actually wanted to put one foot on it and see if you could actually make this thing float?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I just worked a lot. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't even like the term, to be quite honest. I don't mean to offend anyone. That's not me. And because entrepreneur comes with this idea that you knew what you were doing from the get. And I had no clue. I just knew that I liked what I was doing. I knew how to build a website at the time. And I knew that you build a website, you get traffic to it, and you can monetize on those people. And that's all I knew. And so I worked. So I'm not the entrepreneur that like drops everything. I'm not fearless at all. Like I liked money, so I wanted to like stay safe. So in college, I had other jobs. And then even when I graduated, I got an office with Rudy back there, who was running a design firm, and Jeff, our other buddy. And we had that office just like for $250 just to say that we had an office because we needed that cool clout.
The prestige that comes along with clients instead of meeting it at your mom's house is a little bit nicer.
Yeah, exactly. We were still embarrassed to invite people over there because it's just one. It was one big room, and then there was a bathroom that was also the kitchen. But anyway, the progression is
weirdly fits within the Sloppy Joe story somehow.
Yeah, sorry, this is gonna start grossing people out, but anyways, and so 2008, 2009 was just what I wanted to cover. Invited some friends to write on the blog. But yeah, I worked at marketing at an airline. I worked marketing at a appliance company. And so that's like, I grew this like tough skin to try to make like shitty shit fun. And so that's where it went. But then I think we took it in stages. So as soon as we made more money, I didn't know what a VC was also, by the way. I had no idea that was an option.
If you don't know what a VC is, that's a venture capitalist. It's a rich guy who gives you money, right? Essentially.
Yes, and he has a lot of expectations, and I don't know.
Or a woman. It could be a woman who gives you money as well.
Yeah, it could be, I don't know. Could be whoever who has money. But anyway, so we just went in stages. As soon as we had money, we would hire people. So before I came on full time, we had 5 other employees that were full time. And that goes for all of our co-founders, is that we knew that the business could make money. And for a brand like Foodbeast, it's a brand like Vice, where on paper, it doesn't make any sense. You can't, in a business plan, say you're going to be a cool brand. You just have to go out and fucking do it. And so you have to make mistakes. You have to like make a voice for yourself. And we just didn't think at the time a VC or, an infusion of money would make sense. We just wanted to prove the concept. And that's kind of how it got going.
So are you saying that you found a VC and you got somebody to give you money, or you're saying you're bootstrapping this thing?
No. So now I don't know how many employees we have, but it's over 12. It's 15 employees. We have an awesome bed of contractors. That makes it sound like we sleep with our contractors, but that's not it.
They have to work from the bed.
From the ground up. No, we're actually, what's cool to say is we're a profitable company. So it's really hard to say as a publication, as a tech company, which we consider ourselves all those now. So last year was our first profitable company. So we're just growing it from the ground up and kind of keeping it close to the vest for our sake, and being able, like, if we want to continue writing about how people can pleasure women with fruit, like we want that ability to keep doing it. which we lost an ad deal on, by the way.
Well, okay, talk about that a little bit. So your content is sort of edgy. You write about stuff that's a little it wouldn't show up on the front of the New York Times. But in terms of what you're finding in the stories that you're writing, my wife was talking about some story. I think it had to do with the stop me if I'm wrong. Milk had a huge line outside of it in front of New York, and some guy died on a bench, and people just didn't even help this guy because they just wanted to get their cronut. Like,
yes,
how do you decide
true.
what types of things that you're gonna write? Because it's pretty. Sometimes it's that one's kind of macabre, but a lot of them are really, really funny. The tone of voice is interesting. Like, how are you finding those types of stories to write about?
I think the high level strategy of what we talk about is Foodbeast is the idea of like food as a euphoria. So it's food as you're so passionate about food. So that's why the Sloppy Joe story passes, because this kid is so passionate about his Sloppy Joes that he did it and overexerted himself. That's a real thing that people do, and they deal with it. So in that story, these people are lining up for cronuts, and all the while there's a dead person just chilling there, and he's passed the fuck out and he's dead. And those people care so much about their damn cronut that they ignored the dead person there. They all had that complex that, oh, someone else will call the cops, or that dude is fine, or I don't know the context of this story.
Have you had a cronut, though? They're really good.
Yeah, cronuts are amazing. Holy cow. But if there's a dead person, like, the cronut will still be there unless it's after 11. That shit sells out.
Well, I mean, that story... That story is just one of like a long list of just fun. I mean, so it's interesting. So then you build this concept, you write about stuff, you find advertisers. So essentially, the thing I think you're good at is finding great stories. But there's this whole salesmanship part of it where you gotta get people to put ads in there. You gotta get people to pay for sponsored posts and this kind of thing. Talk to me a little bit about the learning curve with that, and then how you actually make that happen, how you actually make money.
Yeah, there's a big learning curve there, and I can't take credit for any of that. We have one of our co-founders, Jeff, does a great job of making sense of our editorial team. So in our company, there's the editorial side, and there's the biz dev side, and we're given a lot of faith from our biz dev side that, like, stay true to your tone. So, for example, like a week ago, it's actually a couple weeks ago, when Jeff pulls me aside and says, hey, man, we lost some business. And I was like, what? Like, we don't really hear that, not because we're so good at landing business, just because, like, we're very selective with, like, who we get to work with. And I was like, cool, like, let's learn what was it. And he was like, your piece about we're working with a potential packaged good company, and on the homepage they saw a story that they didn't like. And it was that story about
the fruit.
The fruit. Yeah, the fruit story. And, 1 out of every 20 of our stories is that. Anyways, and they couldn't align with it. And instead of Jeff telling me, dude, stop, change like what we talk about because we can't win business, he was like, just keep it going. Because he sees that bigger picture, and he sees that, like, for example, like some of our mentors at Vice were, they're like, dude, don't compromise, because Vice for the longest time wasn't winning the business that they wanted to win, because they were smoking pot in their editorials. They're like just talking about things that other people thought were taboo, and now they turn away business. Like they have so much business because everyone around Vice is like they consider those publications potentially like blasé, and like their brand attached to those publications isn't going to like pierce the veil. So we're just fortunate that our ad team makes the best case of like the content that's on the site, and the brands that we do work with are amazing, and they see the fruits of that labor.
So maybe talk a little bit. The thing that's most interesting to me about Foodbeast is how quickly you create content. I worked at Nike for years, and in order to just produce a product, it would take a year and a half. But you guys, it just seems like on the fly, this is something interesting we want to cover. We're going to shoot photos of it. We're going to produce it and put it on Snapchat and new media, like those types of things. Yeah. You're working with new media, and you're producing so much content so soon. Why or how are you guys able to do that so quickly? And is that, you know, sort of part of your ethos and why you grow? I'm very curious about it because there's a lot of content that you guys are making. If you don't understand, Foodbeast is doing like every new app. You guys are probably on some things I've never even heard about. So it's pretty interesting for a company to be monetizing those kinds of things and leading the way in it. So
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a good and bad to putting out a lot of content, because it's the reason Nike does that. And, you know, like, they only want to put out the very best. And as a news publication, you can't really worry so much about that. I mean, for us, we just had to compete with, you know, we're a small staff with a large audience, and we had to compete with like the Huffington Post and the Mashables of the world. But interesting in terms of like trying new things, we have to. I mean, for example, when Facebook launched their live stream, we were the first publication to have it. And we had so the first live stream we had was stupid. It was just like, is this fucking live? And then there's like 20,000 people live in it, and they're like, yeah, it's live. And half the people had no idea what they were looking at. It's like, and anyways, so a couple live streams later, we decided, I did this thing. You guys know Chubby Bunny, the game where you like stuff. All right, you guys know.
Chubby Bunny, is it Peeps or is it marshmallows?
I think it's like Peeps.
You jam marshmallows in your mouth and just see if you can say the word Chubby Bunny. It's I think every youth group has played it from here to the East Coast.
Is that a youth group game?
Yeah, it's such a youth group game.
I feel terrible now. Anyway, so you stuff any sort of digit-based item into your mouth. Anyway, so what I did was, just to trial it, I took a big box of Cheetos puff balls and started shoving them in my mouth one by one, and we had a flip counter, a live stream. So we waited, and people trickled in. It's just like, how many till Eli blows? So it was cool. It worked. And 2 weeks later, Jeff was able to sell that to PBR at a live stream event for they have like a sausage party, the new movie, their release. And so what we're going to do there is having influencers and people from that movie do a live stream where they're shoving like cocktail weenies in their mouth and seeing when they blow. So if we didn't have that proof of concept, which was just a stupid live stream at first, we would have never sold that business because it sounds stupid on paper.
It's like, yeah, hey, my business plan, and we're going to do Chubby Bunny.
Seth Rogen's going to shove weenies in his mouth. And you guys are going to pay us for it.
Well, it seems opportunistic, I guess, is what I would say. You're finding opportunities for media for you guys to actually just sell concepts. That's pretty wild. I mean, if you think about how slow people are to adopt new media, you know, who's an expert in Snapchat besides like a 13-year-old?
Snapchat,
so, like,
it's crazy.
Maybe you could. I mean, the nature of like finding opportunities, is that a conversation you guys are having all the time, or is someone dedicated to going, oh, just find new media, test it out, see if we can actually make money at it? Is that organic? How does that work?
It's I wish I could say it was more methodical. I think we just have a really good relationship, and we have a small team. So when I say like biz dev department and editorial department, it's 6 people and 4 people. You know, like it's not anything crazy. So I think there's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of like cross pollination and ideas. So our business side reads the site, so they see what happens. They're like, oh shit, that live stream worked. One of the most humbling experiences was we landed business for the Snapchat Discover pages, and one of the brands on there pays us to do their written content. So we're ghostwriters for other people. Anyways, and when we landed that business, I was like, fuck, I don't even have Snapchat. And that was the first time where I felt really old for, you know, the industry I'm working in. And so I just started talking to 20-year-olds, which seemed really creepy. And just started asking them. I downloaded the app, and that was a crazy learning curve because that Discover page, like those articles get read 2 to 4 million times a day. And so to give you an idea, like our site gets read like 2 to 4 million times a month, and our video views are between like 40 to 100 million views a month. But the idea that the written articles that we're doing for Snapchat are dedicated to 15 to 20-year-old girls, like we had to put on different thinking caps for that. So it was humbling. Like I was like, oh shit, for that moment I'm behind in social media, and you can't be complacent there because for that moment I was like, oh, we've owned Facebook. We got this. Like, we turned a page from 100,000 likes to, 3.2 in a year. Like, we got that. Instagram, same thing. We found our voice there. And, we became, for just that, even in like a couple weeks, you can become complacent.
Essentially, effectively, like if there's a theme there, it would be you guys are staying dynamic. You want to stay kind of malleable. You don't want to. Gary Vee says you don't want to get romantic with the way that you kind of make money. You don't. Essentially, you see opportunities everywhere, and just because something works right now doesn't necessarily mean it'll work 3 months from now.
Yeah.
Which that's a valuable maxim to have. You guys probably haven't even talked about it, but you're not slow to adopt new media, and you create tons of content. I love what you're doing, and I'm actually kind of curious. It sounds like when we had a conversation that you're doing, apart from what we're talking about right now in the revenue model, there's a million other things that you're piloting just to see if they could make money. Talk about a little bit about the traveling that you're doing and some of the things you're working on right now, just to see what happens.
I mean, one of the more, we piloted an event called Ooze Fest, and it's a cheese festival. We did it in Santa Ana, and I wasn't on board initially, because events scare the shit out of me. Because I'm comfortable with talking to millions online, but the idea of trying to get 1,000 people to an event and me showing up and like no one's there is a terrifying thing. But we have a really good team in place for that. And, it was cool because doing an event allowed us to really bring the Foodbeast ethos like all the way around. And that Foodbeast, unlike, some of our competitors like Food Network and Food and Wine, we're not built to talk down. We're not teachers in that, right? We're all on the same playing field, and it's about like sharing the communication. And that's why like when we talk comfortably on the site, it's not about you're hearing these stories about supper clubs and this like highbrow food now from Foodbeast from the same dudes who were talking about Carl's Jr. So like it's all on the same playing field. And so doing an event was cool because it allowed us to bring like this intangible web stuff to the ground. So our grand picture is to do really cool events like that and allow people to not have to just pick from like these snooty big events. It's like you can go to something that's just 40 different cheese things, and there's a world record grilled cheese tower. We're gonna have a grilled cheese eating contest. So that's, events is a really cool thing that we're getting into.
So you tested an event, and then it also sounds like you might. Is this top secret? You're piloting. We can cut this out, but are you piloting kind of like a show or something?
We're piloting a lot of shows, which is really cool. Yeah, I mean that's like part of our cool. Now we want editorials. We're good. We can write, and now the next level is episodic series. So last year we did a show called Where's the Bar with GQ, and it was just a travel show where Rudy and I go and drink and do stuff and show you cool bars around the globe. And you just piloting that with GQ opened up like, cool, now we're going to pilot 6 different shows. So I just finished one called All Nighter, where honestly it's such a shit show. But it's basically we go to 10 different cities around America and stay up all night, which sounds really cool when you watch the video until you stay up for 3 straight nights to film one. This is a bruise from I was hanging out with the most notorious motorcycle gang in San Antonio, and they didn't beat the shit out of me. They were pretty cool, but they told me to get on their stripper pole, and this is after a game of Crazy Darts, which is an even worse game, and a lot of drinks, and I just went on the stripper pole, and that happened. I don't know how this is relevant at all. Sorry.
Well, it's totally relevant because I just think
hung out with a motorcycle gang, guys.
Yeah, you seem like tough. I think overall, I think we take away from this would be, stay dynamic, sort of test a bunch of things. Just because it doesn't work doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying. You don't really see those things as failures or anything, Maybe, is there an example of something that you kind of went in on you thought was going to be big, or, not to put you on the spot, we didn't really talk about this one, but is there something that you tested and it just didn't really work that great for you?
Yeah, I mean, our first branded project ever was for a company called Lindor Truffles. delicious stuff. And the brief they sent to us was, how would Foodbeast enjoy Lindor truffles? And this is like, we just got in an office together and we're like, yeah. And we froze the Lindor truffles, and Jeff pulled out his golf clubs in the office. Rudy took off his shirt, and we stuck the Lindor truffles into his belly button and fucking went clubbing in the office, like at each other. Tommy was actually there. Anyways, and in between that, we remembered there's a brand, and so we also showed you how to put the truffles in coffee, melt it off, and you have a delicious chocolate coffee. The brand paid us not to put it up, and so it was a good. This is before I had no agency experience. Jeff had a little agency experience, and it was one of those, like, you gotta balance like your fun tone with actually like contributing to the brand that you're working for. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, that wasn't a success. I mean, we got paid a measly amount of money to basically shove the creative we did like down the drain. So that wasn't fun. But our next one, became more successful because we had that mistake in mind.
Well, it just seems like your branded content is actually super seamless. Okay, branded content, native advertising, these things essentially where a company is paying you to cover their product in a genuine way. They really don't want you to be like, these truffles are delicious.
Yeah.
They don't want it fake. How I feel like I can sniff out branded content really quickly, or native advertising. And well, I don't want to read this article because it's sponsored by or something like that. How do you measure that against the kind of stuff that you really want to cover?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a blend of having. We're fortunate to work with really cool clients, but at the same time having the utmost respect for who your customer is. Our customer is our viewers and our readers. So yeah, you can't they're really smart. And they're really cynical. So you can't create bullshit for them. You can't talk to them like a marketer. You talk to them with the same voice you created the other content that they love. So, I mean, some of our top performing pieces are branded content. Like we did really proud of it was a PBR deep fried Reuben sandwich, and using a PBR is the beer batter. I mean, and it got 7 million views in 2 days, and it's explicitly labeled branded.
So it seems authentic. Essentially, you're saying we're just going to be authentic with the branded content, just like how we would be with stuff that we would pick to cover.
It's the same exact stuff. And we, not to say everything branded we've done is a smashing success. I mean, our clients, the report we send them says it is, but
let's use those metrics and put them in a chart.
Yeah. Charts are fluffy.
Here's what I want to do. Is there a message that you want to tell these guys? It's sort of just there's a lot of young entrepreneurs.
So hard, Josh? Josh is so hysterical. Just kidding.
He's like a Zuckerberg over there. If you guys want to, there's a lot of young entrepreneurs here. There's a lot of people who kind of want to start their own business, or people who are maybe thinking about starting their own thing. Do you have any advice for them that's sort of just like an ethos of something that's really working for you that you kind of want to impart on them?
Yeah, I think I said a little bit earlier that I was pretty afraid of a lot of things. It's just you don't have with the idea of being an entrepreneur. There's this fearless mentality and this fearless ethos. Just don't be afraid. Just drop everything and do it. Everyone has their own path. My path was I'm gonna work. And I'm also after hours going to work on my project. And I think I found a blend. And I know other people find that blend. And because it's scary to drop everything and just work on your passion project. And so there's good and bad to doing that. I mean, there's an extreme value in not having anything to do but focus on your passion project. You'll get it done a lot quicker. But I'm a fan of putting my nuts on the table at the right time. I want to safely put my nuts on the table. And so I stopped, I cut off my other jobs when I was cool, I can comfortably pay myself at this point. And, I just you can always put your nuts on the table. You're theoretically speaking.
So whatever. It's more of your pragmatic approach to it. Once you see proof of concept, then it's kind of okay to take that. So what I want to do right now is take a few questions from you guys, whatever you have for him. Maybe especially if you're a huge fan of Foodbeast, I want to hear a question from you.
Do the same thing. Just
Dude, I think did anyone know about that before yesterday?
It happened overnight. Essentially, Brady's saying if you haven't downloaded the new Instagram, there's effectively a very similar Snapchat story
It's the exact
element.
same thing.
And
Facebook fucked Snapchat. Holy shit.
Yeah, they basically just were like, yo, let's just lift this idea. We'll take it. Hopefully we can kill this medium.
They
Yeah.
called it stories. Like they're not even hiding it. And yeah, and that's one of the things where like we're not gonna avoid it. Like so, yesterday we went on and we just started creating stories. The first couple stories were honest stuff that like Snapchat just got jacked, and then but because we know a client's gonna ask about it a week from now. Like, what are you guys doing on Instagram stories? We're like, oh, cool. Here's what we've done. Here's the viewership metrics that we have, and then we talk to our partners and make sure they're using it too. Yeah. So we have to just break it, just go use it.
Essentially, you're just going to test it out, see what's there, and kind of see if you can sell it.
Yeah, I mean, and what's good, especially about social networks, is that just because I joke that they're the same, that Instagram stories are the same as Snapchat stories, but the Instagram audience is different than the Snapchat audience. So you can't just recreate. We're not planning on recreating our Snapchat stuff on Instagram. It's quite different. The audience we've built on Instagram expects something different than the Snapchat audience. So keeping that in mind for us, I think, is going to be a good thing.
The question's what's the future for you? What's the future for Foodbeast? And then how effectively, I think you're asking, how are you able to be reactionary to culture? Was that the question?
I mean, so it goes in line with, I don't want anyone to think that you shouldn't have a business plan. Like, just because we didn't, that was just the path we happened to take. I can't tell the future. I can't like recreate the past to say we wouldn't be way more successful with the business plan. But the business plan I would have written 6 or 7 years ago would have just said like, create a publication, drive traffic to it. And then I would have missed the experimentation on Facebook where that became our largest growth opportunity. And I would have missed like events as a culture thing to wrap the brand around. Because when you start, you don't know all these things. But now we do get a little bit more methodical. So we do think about, what our goals should be 2 years out, 3 years out. And we try, again, you can have goals and still react accordingly. And all good companies do that. So like Facebook reacting to Snapchat and just copying them verbatim.
The question is, have you ever wanted to rage quit? And that's a game term. I'm out of here. So have you ever thought about quitting? And then, how do you navigate through that?
So I've honestly never thought about quitting. I've thought about how fucking hard it can be. So about a year ago, we got really ambitious, and talking about the episodic series we want to do, that's an expensive thing to go after. So some of our competitors raised like 20, 30, $40 million in funding and put it all towards creating these like 10 episode video series. And we were like, cool, we're going to create one and see how that works. And we were hoping brands would catch on and brands would pay for these series. And there was a limbo period last year where we had all these great ideas. We throw them out to all the financiers that would do it. And we're like, dude, if this doesn't work, like we're just going to be on the same like whatever path. And then more recently, earlier this year, all those things started to land. And it was just a time thing. But yeah, in that limbo period, it's scary because it's like we don't have a windfall of, some rich dude with pockets. We have our pockets, and it's like full of lint, when we started. So yeah, it's scary. There's times where I'm just like, dude, did I make the right decision? Did I bring like these like 15 of like my closest friends on for this ride? Are they going to be good? And so that's a conversation we always have, is like, how do we make their lives good? And so, yeah, that's scary.
You're producing a crazy amount of content, and with the followings that you have and the expectations that you have, it basically needs to be posted, like constantly all the time. how, I guess it's a much bigger question, but how can you maybe talk through how you guys have structured your content calendar, how you actually are thinking like, shit, we need to have like this many posts, this many months out or weeks out.
Yeah.
Can you talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, your question is about structuring our content calendar and how do we decide like kind of what to create, when to create it. So for example, in the food category, if you have Facebook, you've seen food recipe videos blow up. It's just like the most popular thing on it's the most popular piece of style of content on the web right now. And when how we took advantage of that was when about a year ago when Facebook's algorithm changed, businesses, any page owners, they were kind of like cranky about their reach and having to pay for the followers that they had, which is a fair gripe to have because we've all, spent a lot of time on Facebook building that. Ours was the reverse. So the food videos ended up getting really well trafficked. And so we weren't doing a lot of recipes a year and a half ago. We were focusing on the news and we're like, oh shit, this one video got 10 million views. Let's try it again. Oh shit, this video got 20 million views. And then our likes exploded. Well, let's do it again. And so we doubled down on that and just started, not only were we building recipes in-house, and again, our team is really small. So we had our video director creating those videos, but we were also building out this thing called the Foodbeast family, which is just everyone at home that can cook. And they were sending us videos. So we weren't even paying for that stuff, frankly. And we were just building their audiences. They would all get tagged and they would grow with us. And now we monetize with all of them. So when we have a campaign, like the PBR thing I was talking about, that's a campaign that we gave to all those creators. So PBR gave us the money. We give it to creator A, home chef B, mom C, and they gave us great ideas and we distribute them. So that's like our recipe series stuff. That's what we doubled down on. So us trying that event last year, we sold out that event, but we broke even. We had no sponsors, no one, it was hard for us to do anything. It sold out, people showed up, and documenting that whole process on Instagram, we had great news coverage. That leveraged into us throwing events for other brands. So, for example, Jack in the Box saw that, and Jack in the Box was like, yo, can you throw a party for our new burger launch and our Super Bowl commercial? And we're like, yeah, we could do that. We had no clue if we could, but we did it, and it was awesome, and that became, we had no idea, again, like, events was not part of our business plan. That doesn't exist. It was just something that, like, cool, not only can we do a fun event, we can do a fun event for a brand, and that was a totally unexpected revenue stream.
Well, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much, Eli. Give him a round of applause if you can.
Thank you, guys.
That was great.